Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Real View podcast. Joining us today, our special guest is Josh Ries. He is the managing broker for South Dakota at My Real Estate Company and a lead generation strategist who helps agents build profitable, self-sustaining marketing system. He consults the same way he built his business, tactically and without fluff, and grounded in real-world execution. His focus is helping agents cut through the noise, eliminate third-party dependency, and take full control of their growth. Whether it's simplifying strategy or challenging outdated industry models, he is all about delivering practical value that actually moves the needle. Josh, welcome onto the show. We're so happy to have you.
Hey, I am super pumped to be here. Thank you, Allison, very much for inviting me on.
Of course, and you are here today to talk to us about AI. And we know that this is such a hot topic. We can't hear about it enough. It's on everything. Every time we're scrolling through the internet, every conference we're at, it's always a hot button topic. And it seems like we just can't get enough of it right now. And that's why I wanted you to come on, because you have some practical, real life advice, some stories, what you've found in your time using AI in your business. And you're going to share with us a little bit about what you found, how we can use it to the best of our ability, how we can, utilize it to make our business stronger, but also what to avoid. And you have a really cool story you're going to share with us. But before we get started in that, I would like to learn a little bit more about you. Could you tell us how you got started in real estate and what led you to where you are today?
Yes. So real estate was not ever really the plan for me. I basically, at 13 years old, I got into digital marketing. I had an aunt who was an entrepreneur and took the time to really teach me about Google ads. And this was right about the time that Google started allowing small business owners to run their own ad campaigns and manage everything. So I got in really, really early when Google did that. And fortunately, I had an aunt who was super smart, one of the most accomplished entrepreneurs that I know still to this day. And I used to spend summers at their house a few weeks out of the summer. And so one of those times she taught me how to run Google ads. And it was super interesting. I think the moral of the story is when you have people that are younger and impressionable and you spend a little bit of time teaching them a skill, you never know how it's going to benefit them long term.
Yep.
So long story short on that, I ran Google ads actually in high school to make money. And then when I got to adult age, I had another career for a while, but I was still running Google ads on the back end of things. And so I had a really strong digital marketing background. I forget the exact timeline of everything, but I got licensed about 10 years ago in real estate because my wife was in real estate and said, hey, you should have a plan B. And I was like, I don't need a plan B. I'm plenty fine. And she's like, you should. So I got my real estate license. And then about 2 years after that, life happened. And the career that I thought was going to be my forever career ended. And I jumped into real estate with both feet. And it was kind of a super simple match with my digital marketing background and lead generation. So we just started building a business in real estate. We did that for quite a few years in Oregon. And then about 3 years ago, we relocated to South Dakota. My wife still runs a team in Oregon. I'm a referral agent there, but now I am a broker in South Dakota. And as of just 2 weeks ago, I accepted a position as the managing broker for my real estate company in South Dakota as their push of opening South Dakota into their brokerage.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's so exciting. What an accomplishment and testament to the work that you've done. And congratulations on success in the future. Sounds like it's very bright.
So it's been a trip for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And now, you are a successful practicing broker, going to be moving up, accepting a new position. And one of the things that you've talked about is your use of AI and how you've involved that in your business and your business strategy. And you had a really great story that you decided to share with us, and I appreciated, you being willing to share this story. And I'm going to let you kind of share it and what happened to you when you were using AI. But I would love to hear, how you were using it, what your thought process was behind that, and then kind of what you learned and going through what you went through and using AI. Tell us that story, what that was like, and kind of your process behind that.
Yeah, so we were developing a new website, and part of that process was figuring out ways to utilize AI within our lead nurture process and lead generation process. And this was quite a few years ago when AI was still very new. Chat bots were just starting to come on the scene. And at the time, we were actually running a Real Geeks website, and they integrated their new chat bot. We did a lot of testing with it, a ton of research, and really thought that it was going to take our business to the next level. And so we implemented it, and very quickly it opened our eyes to the power of AI. And it did do some very good things to the business, but there were also some unintended consequences. And I think that's one thing in real estate that we're not necessarily looking at when we're talking about AI. It can very much make you a lot more powerful, I think, from a real estate standpoint. But if we're not using it in the right way, it can backfire. And that's exactly what happened in this story. It's not one of my finer moments in real estate. And it was one of those things that I really feel like if I can teach somebody through mistakes I've made, there's value in that. So I wrote that article in Inman on it, but it really was not one of my finer moments in real estate.
Yeah, and I appreciate it so much that you were so willing about it. And, it doesn't, when you can learn from your mistakes, it's not always a bad thing. And it sounds like you've done that and you're using this as a learning experience. You're being open about it, you're sharing it, with other agents to say, hey, like, here's what's happened to me. This doesn't have to happen to you. And let's make sure we avoid that because we're all here to succeed. And that's one of the coolest things about this industry is that we all are competitors, but we're all willing to share our success and our failures. So I guess let's start at the beginning, walk us through. So you gave a really great background on how you were using AI. You really started adapting it at an early age. You were one of the, early adapters of it, I feel like. And so tell us kind of what happened in your experience with it and how it all went down.
So yeah, we fired off this new website with a chatbot feature, and we were really using it heavily not only for lead generation as leads came into the system, but also our lead nurture process. And like I said, it looked really good for the first couple months, and it actually wasn't until I sat down for this listing appointment that we realized we had a real big issue on our hands. And fortunately, I had a friend who his parents were looking to sell. So it was someone that I knew fairly well. But the other thing about it, this was, I was still pretty early in my real estate career. I didn't have a lot of a big reputation yet. I still don't have a big reputation, but I really had no reputation back then. So we sit down and we're talking. And one of the first questions they asked me was, hey, we've talked to you before, but over the last 3 months, you literally have not talked to us one time. The only communication we've got is through your chat bot or automated emails, and those type of things where you spent no time actually helping us and getting us prepared, even though you knew we were going to be going to the market and we wanted to interview you. And it was one of those times in real estate that you just kind of have to shut up. I think in real estate, a lot of times we talk about overcoming objections, but I
Yeah.
think also understanding that some objections can't be overcome is important too. And this was one of those moments for me. As soon as they said that, obviously I put my best foot forward, trying to overcome the fact that I had totally neglected them leading up to them listing the most important asset they had on the market. But I just had to basically sit there and go, I'm not going to get this one. And it was really, really important because it really showed me that although AI is powerful, it's not good at building relationships. We've really now in our business utilized AI in ways to free up myself and our other agents to build those personal relationships, have those connections. So give AI the tasks that take you a lot of time over the day and eat up a lot of your, bandwidth. give AI those tasks so that you have the time free to make your calls, make those personal connections, personalize the follow-ups, and all that type of stuff. And as soon as I was done with that listing appointment, I went back to the office and we started retooling everything because I was like, this can never happen to me again. I will never be put in that position. But more importantly, I wanted other agents and the agents on our team to be not in that position as well. And
Yep.
so it was really eye opening. And it's one thing now, as over the last year, I've been doing a lot of consulting on lead generation. And it's a very common thing among agents where they're over relying on AI to try to build relationships and it's just not working. Now, one day I think we might be there, maybe. But I think at this point in time, there's no substitute for personal contact with people to build those relationships, to really solidify your position as the expert, the local expert in your community.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, I think it's so important that, you kind of laid it out perfectly how you're using AI now, focusing on that automation, focusing on those tasks that, really take a lot of time so that we can be there and be focusing on those relationships, be building that, relationship up to where everyone's feeling great before you enter in probably the biggest, purchasing, selling time that you're ever going to go through. And I think, that's really smart to know is like, hey, and I feel like that the consumer is like we're kind of getting good at like realizing when something is AI and when it wasn't. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long ago this story was for you, but even since AI came out and ChatGPT and things like that came out, I feel like you're seeing so much more. This was AI, there was dashes, this was AI, it was that. Consumers are recognizing and we have been familiarizing ourselves with this for a year 2 years now, and we're able to tell. And I think it's something to keep in mind. It's something to be aware of that these consumers know when you're using AI, and they're going to be able to recognize it. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened with you.
Yeah. And I will say, this was quite a few years ago. So the technology has come a long ways. But what I've learned through the process is like, just don't put yourself in that process
Yes.
because it wasn't worth the little gain we had, wasn't worth a listing for
Yeah.
us. I would have much rather had that listing than the little bit of gain we were getting from the extra touches because they're not personalized. And
Yeah.
so as the AI technology improves, I think maybe it's something that we can look into down the road. But I can tell you right now, the teams and solo agents that I've consulted with over the last years that are heavily using AI to try to build relationships are really seeing a big decline in their conversion rates. So,
Yeah, I feel that way too, and I think that's the power that realtors have right now. When we think of the world of AI, is that, like you said, it's not great at those relationships. And that's something that realtors, are really good at. And that's where the business comes from. It's a very much person first business, it's a very much client, first business. And that's our duty as realtors is to make sure that those relationships are strong and that we are putting them first. And that's the value that we bring to this process. And that's one of those questions, everyone says, is AI going to replace my job? And it's like, no, it's not building those relationships. Like you said, it might down the line and eventually, we'll see, where we're at with that. But as of now, it's not doing a great job at that. You still need that human touch, and it's still really valued, within clients and consumers that are looking to go down this path.
yeah, I think right now we're at a place where AI at this point is not going to replace agents, but the agents who are adapting AI correctly are going to replace the agents that aren't adapting it. And that's one thing we've seen in our business. I mean, I just published an article in Inman about posting 30 times a day for 30 days and getting 110,000 views in 30 days across social media channels. And I was spending about an hour a day to do that because I was leveraging AI. And that's something that could never been done 5 years ago. And it's something now that with no paid software, no nothing, I did it as cheap as possible just to prove it could be done. I was able to do that. So I think the agents that can adapt that are going to be able to really push the agents out that are really having a tough time adapting AI. But I think at this point, we're never going to get replaced by AI at this point. That could always change. Who knows with technology?
Yeah,
But
the AI isn't going to sit in your house and celebrate when your house closes and pop the bottles of champagne and have the moment together at the closing table. So I completely agree with you. I think if that does happen and we're having a different conversation in the next couple of years, then we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I think right now, as you said, using it in the right way and absolutely using it, not being afraid of it. And I think that's kind of what happens. What I see a little bit too is sometimes agents are afraid of it or they don't know how to get started. What's your best advice for how just to begin using AI? Where would you say to start? What would you say to stay away from? We talked about a little bit of it, but how do we get started if we're new to this or don't even know where to begin?
I think the best place to start is first find out like where you're comfortable. So pretty much, everybody has an AI platform now. Chat GPT is kind of the main one, but everybody has one. So I think the first thing is find a platform that you're comfortable with using. And then I always tell people the first place, if you've never used AI before, there's a really good free tool by originality.ai, and it's a prompt generator. So if you just Google originality.ai prompt generator, it basically just brings up a window and it's free to use. I think you can use it 25 times a day for free. But it allows you to put in just simple text of what you want AI to do, and it will build the prompt for you.
Mhm.
So, especially if you're brand new to this, you have no idea even what a prompt is, you can just put in that box in plain English what you want it to do, and it will create the prompt that you can then copy and paste into ChatGPT or any other AI software and start just playing with it, start experimenting with it. It's a very, very powerful tool, but you also can gain a lot of value out of it, even using it at a very basic level. So, I do all sorts of things with AI. A lot of the stuff I use AI for is just very simple. It's nothing, it's not rocket science. I'm using it very basic stuff just because it expedites the creation process for a lot of different things that I do.
Absolutely. And I think that that's come up a lot recently too, is the prompting and knowing that's how you can really get the most out of AI is knowing how to prompt it and knowing how to get the results you want. So that's an amazing tool. I think everyone should absolutely be checking that out. Learn how to do your prompts. Learn how to ask what you want in a way that it's going to understand to get the results that you're looking for. So I think that's amazing. Are there any other favorite AI tools that you're using right now that you're really excited about that you would recommend? And tell us some of your favorite implementations that you've been able to do.
So I'm using it a lot. I'm not very creative, like
Yeah.
from a visual creative standpoint. And so I use it a lot for the Google AI Studio, the Gemini software for thumbnails, social media style posts. A big thing I'm using it right now, and I'll kind of go into that topic about all the posts that I did. So in
Yeah.
September, I basically wanted to run a test to prove that you could mass create content on social media while still being successful within real estate.
Mhm.
And so one of the biggest things I've got from agents is I just don't have time.
Yep.
And so I created a system where basically I was posting on threads. You can do it on Twitter as well. I picked threads because their scheduling worked better for me. But basically, I was posting 25 to 30 quotes a day on threads. I was then taking the best performing ones and just putting them into AI to generate what I called quote cards, which were basically just static images. And then I would use Canva AI to generate some type of slide to go with that quote card. And then I'd post that up. And then I was using the best performing ones of those, taking that out of back from the social media, making a script in AI for a short form video. And then I would post that short form video. And then over the course of the week, the best performing videos I had, I would actually take those back and make a long form YouTube video script and script a long form YouTube video. And then the interesting thing about it is those videos I was also putting up as Inman articles. And so it was a great way to basically test things out progressively. And then over time, using the things that worked well with AI to take it to the next level. And so I was able to scale out almost 900 posts
Wow.
in a month. It was kind of crazy. It didn't really take me that long. I did run in about 3 weeks into it. I got really sick. and it put me out of commission. And I almost thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to redo it in October just so I can get it. And I was like, I decided not to because I thought it was much more realistic because let's face it, you can have the best plans in place to do social media and do posts and all that type of stuff. But in real estate, life happens. It could be a showing, closing delays, family stuff. So I just decided to roll with it because I thought it kind of made it the whole experience more relevant. But it just proved you don't need I spent almost no dollars to do it. I do have the Chat GPT $20 a month plan. And I do have some editing software on my phone that I used for the short form video. But it really showed you don't need to have a big budget to compete on a big scale, especially with a lot of the like high producing teams and markets. They're hard to compete with if you're just trying to compete one-on-one with them. But if you have a content strategy that's pushing that content out, and especially the change we've seen with the social media algorithms going much more to an intent-driven platform where they're trying to really find things that are relevant to specific people, it's just a matter of getting enough content out there to be able to compete with those, bigger players in your market. And the cool thing about it is, like, as a solo agent, this is one thing I tell a lot of solo agents is you don't need to do the same volume to compete with a high producing team because you're a solo agent. If you can maximize your business math and maximize your cost per lead, your cost per acquisition, and your lifetime value, you don't need to sell 100 homes a year. If you can, great, by all means do it, but you don't need to do those numbers because you don't have all the other additional fees that a lot of these large high producing teams have.
Yep. Working smarter, not harder. I think that's the phrase, we hear oftentimes so much, and it sounds like that's exactly, what you've been able to do and what we encourage everyone to do. And that's such a great way to do that. So smart. And like you said, that took you like an hour. Like you were mentioning, it was pretty time sufficient too. And like you said, you hear it and say there's just not enough time. It doesn't have to take a lot of time, and it doesn't have to take a lot of money, which is all something that we can appreciate for sure. I want to know what other mistakes you've seen agents making when it comes to AI. You gave us a great personal example of what's happened to you. What other mistakes are you seeing people make out there? What should we stay away from, and what should we be aware of to make sure we're not doing anything not so great with our AI?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest one that we saw is, and this happened a couple years ago, but all the big CRM companies started putting the disclaimer down at the bottom, text stop to stop this, or, those type of disclaimers. And what we saw is, especially teams that implemented those, like their conversion rates just tanked. And especially like appointment rates on text messages just went in the tank. So we basically turned off all our SMS text messaging. And what we do now instead is we're actually in our follow-up systems in our CRM, we're just having it put reminders on our calendars so that, if we have an agent who pops into their CRM, it will say, hey, just text this person. And we'll even put the text they're supposed to, but that way they can just copy and paste it out into their cell phone and text it directly to them. Instead of having the system. The other thing that we're seeing and why this is working really well too is the social media platforms are data mining our phones more than ever. And what we're seeing is if you start texting people from your cell phone and get in a conversation back and forth other than your CRM phone number, they're going to start seeing your stuff on social media more often too. And so that's a big change that we've seen now. And that's, AI more on the social media platform side of things.
Yeah.
But that's one thing we've seen is if you're allowing your CRM to start text messaging people, your conversion rates are just going to go in the tank. We've even started to limit our emails now too, just because I think people started to realize if you're sending out 3-4 emails a week, like that's not you. And so we really brought that way down. I think the other thing, and this is kind of, but always proofread your,
Oh my
anytime
gosh.
I've seen more agents over the last 6 months, like obviously copy and paste directly from it and like not take out the Chat GPT says.
Yep.
So I think that's a big one. But I think the biggest one is a hesitation of people to adapt it because they either don't know or they're scared of it. And when I say scared, I think they're just scared of the technology in general.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really the big one is if you've tested out and you figured out it's not for you, okay, great. But I just recommend everybody, the biggest mistake that I'm seeing is people not even testing it out to see how they can use it. And the way that it works for your business is going to look totally different than the way that it looks for somebody else's business. And that's a big thing too for me with lead generation. I think all too often we like try to teach there's one way to do something within real estate, especially around lead generation. And it's like everybody has different business goals. And so, the way you implement your lead generation systems or your AI technology should always reinforce what your business goals are. And so, you don't need to implement AI like a team that's doing 300 million in volume a year if your goal is you only want to do 12 million in volume. It can look different. It's just a matter of finding a way to make it work for your business and your business goals.
Yep, I think that that's perfect. You don't have to go crazy with it. Find what works for you. Know what you want to get out of it, and then learn it enough to where you're able to do that. And I agree with you completely on just starting, using it. And I was at a conference and someone was talking about AI, and they said, you're going to look back on this, and it's going to be as big as using electricity. Like when humans figured out how to get electricity, like this is going to be on that scale when we think about the history of time and technology and what we're able to do. And it's like, you're not going to be able to move forward in life without electricity. You're not going to be able to move forward in life without the internet. It's going to be on that scale. So it's almost like that's kind of the next phase that we're seeing in the evolution of technology. So get started in it, get your feet wet with it, start, listening to people like you, Josh, who does a great job with it. Finding those industry leaders who, are using it and using it in the right way, I think is a really great place to start and start learning. And, the more you use it, the more you get comfortable with it, the easier it'll be to adapt and practice. What are you seeing up and coming next? What should we be aware of? Future AIs, I know we talked a little bit about some of the things coming out, what it could look like, because it's learning and growing so fast, right? So anything that you're kind of seeing in your crystal ball that's going to happen next, if you had to predict?
I mean, I think a lot right now, what's amazing to me is the video AI that's coming out. Just the level of like how much it looks real. That to me is crazy. It's one thing when you're putting in text-based prompts and it's giving you text-based responses.
Yeah.
And then we went to images and that was like, okay, this is cool. And now with Sora and some of the other like video-based platforms we're seeing, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's, I think that's one way too that agents can really leverage AI, especially if you're not comfortable on camera. There's a couple apps now that you can take a static picture of your face and then give it a script and it will make you talk. And the cool thing about that is like it looks pretty realistic. I think if you're really on top of it, you can probably pick up that it's not. But for the most part, it's realistic enough that if you're afraid to be on camera or something, you don't have an excuse anymore. And, even some of the 11 labs, the voice technology that they're using now, where you can script out something, read a little bit, it takes your voice and then will read the entire script in your voice is crazy.
Crazy.
That type of stuff is nuts. But I think the video is really where it's super interesting to see how that's going to change because we all know in real estate how powerful video is, especially when it comes to building relationships and just nurturing clients. It's such a powerful tool to be able to get face to face with someone from anywhere in the world. So with AI now having that ability to create videos, that look like you, talk like you, I think that's going to be the next game changer. I'm curious to see too what happens from like a regulatory standpoint with it, because I think there's a lot of, with the technology growing or advancing so quickly, I think we're going to see some regulatory changes around when you can use it, disclosure type thing. That's one thing in real estate we're big on is disclosures.
Yep.
And so I think there's going to be a lot of regulatory things about disclosing. I know there's already some, but it seems like right now there's nobody really enforcing any of those.
Yeah.
So I think it's really going to be interesting because it is progressing so fast. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it is. It's just we're at the beginning, we're at the very newborn stages of it. So that absolutely more to come, going to be fascinating to watch as well. And all stuff to keep in mind, think about, make sure you're staying within your fair housing requirements, all that good stuff. Too, I know I see a lot of people getting into some trouble there with using AI, but so much opportunities, and don't be afraid of it. It's here to help. It's here to work for you, and just find out what works for you and how you can make the best use of it. So Josh, I want to thank you again so much for coming on, for sharing with us your stories, your mistakes, your successes. Congratulations on your new career path. And I really appreciated your time today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It was an absolute blast.
And to all of our listeners, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back with you next week. See you then.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.